Individuals who file 100 or more deficient voter registration applications may be subject to a civil penalty. Class 1 offense filing 100 to 500 does not apply to individuals who are not paid.
Amazon moves to town, they register more than 100 voters, trying to figure out if they're subject to this.
It all ties down to if you are paid for voter registration.
And I'm not sure you've given us an absolutely definitive answer.
I cannot, categorically, could you say it would never apply to a corporation? I can't categorically say that. This is to go after individuals who that is what their mission is. The aim is to keep people from accepting forms that just say Jackie.
If the organization sees this, can they discard it?
So we have found nothing that would require that individual to turn that form in. There is a statute that would require completed forms to be turned in.
So we're sort of leaving it up to them or someone at that organization to decide what is complete and what is incomplete?
Yes, currently.
Every group that participates in these registration efforts that's spoken to is under the impression that they are required by Tennessee law to turn in forms even if they are deficient. An application that includes 9 of these 12 questions but not the other 2, is that a deficiency? I think it is under the terms of the statute without question. I don't think that any of these organizations believed that W was going to register to vote. I think that they believed that they were under legal obligation to turn in this incomplete form. I'm trying to figure out how we can compel someone with the law to turn in a form that would be deficient, but on the other hand, punish them for doing something that we required them to do.
Yeah, what we're compelling is the individual to get a complete form. A deficiency is deficiency, and we have known as election officials what a deficiency is.
Are there a list of which deficiencies matter? If we're going to break new ground in exposing organizations to criminal and civil liability, don't we have some obligation to ensure that there's a greater clarity?
We are mandating training for these organizations so they will know.
What's the answer to those things? Those are rules to be made later, or those existing rules now?
Deficiencies is something we trained administrators on for years. If someone is being paid for a voter registration form, or if there's quotas set, that would give you an incentive to turn out anything.
Total number of new registrants that were received by the Election Commission.
So I don't know the total number of registrations. I have seen a number from one county, but anyway, I forgot your question. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to find out what was the percentage of ballots that were filled out incomplete.
One county administrator who says that they received over 30,000 forms has estimated 55% of them were either deficient or duplicate or had deceased or non-citizens, someone that worked for the program. We are asked to work 7 days a week. We are told you have to meet daily numbers or get suspended or fired. Register everyone, even if they are a felon. Don't take no for an answer. And that's the reason we are going after paid organizations.
Federal government showed that about at least 7 to 8% of all voter registration applications are rejected in the first instance. Anytime someone was doing a voter registration drive that was reaching 800 or 1,000 people, they're going to trigger that deficiency and subject themselves to civil and criminal penalties. The punishment for registering 1,000 people and messing up 100 times is equivalent to assault and domestic violence in the state.
There's no way we can support legislation that imposes criminal and significant civil penalties on groups that try to register voters. This legislation is going to intimidate those that do large-scale voter registration efforts, particularly important in communities that have low registration rates, communities where there are people of color, our youth, and those living in poverty. 100 forms is 10% of 1,000, but it's only 1% of 10,000. And we don't want to be the state that criminalizes voter registration drives. It's going to have a chilling impact. It's my understanding that it is already against the law to submit fraudulent forms. And so there's a difference here between fraudulent forms and deficient forms.
Is this being done to lead to a lawsuit? Is it being done to try to embarrass an election commission to bring up an issue of voter suppression?
I do think there's some things short of these draconian measures that could be taken, starting with training. Clearly, the give and take here shows that there's a lot of misperception or misinformation about if you get an incomplete form, can you toss it or should you hand it in? I would hand it in just to preserve that person's right to vote. Sometimes you're swamped and somebody might just leave that form there that's not complete.
They were not our issue. They would not accept these forms.
We are not overly concerned about the impact on us, but we are very concerned about the impact on larger voter registration drives, intimidating the people that want to go register voters. We're not entirely sure that it completely clears us because sometimes we get grants to register voters.
The Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or the League of Women Voters could get a grant, could be subject to criminal and civil penalties.
Yeah, literally it flows back to the financial part of it.
It could have a chilling effect.
Any precedent for this?
We would be a distinctive state in dealing with deficiencies.
No other states had taken this step.
Not for deficiencies.
First state to impose civil and criminal liability.
If there's a weed out there, you better snatch that weed up or it's going to grow. I would argue that this will encourage voter registration, specifically with online voter registration.
Encourage people to register to vote?
Absolutely. Encourage through the online voter registration because
those are very different. I would argue that this could have a very chilling effect. Some people may, out of frustration, go, well, okay, I'll just register to vote online. Or very different calculus.
There's always different incidental benefits.
Is it currently illegal in Tennessee to knowingly register someone or assist to the registration if you know it is a fraudulent?
Yes.
What we're doing, though, is bringing in people who have a high error rate.
My druthers would be for this to go to summer study, but I'm not going to make that motion because I know there's some that want to go ahead and have this bill pass. I still have a lot of reservations.
Senator Briggs. Votes aye. Senator Gardenhart. Votes aye. Senator Jackson. Votes aye. Senator Kelsey. Votes aye. Senator Reeves. Votes aye. Senator White. Votes aye. Senator Yeager. Votes aye. Senator Yarbrough. Votes no, Chairman Dickerson. Votes no, Mr. Chairman. You have 7 ayes, 2 noes.
Okay. The bill passes to calendar.